Bum 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 bum.
Hello everybody, my name is Munyanyi. Welcome back to the 5th episode of the One Culture podcast. Consistency. It's been 5 weeks. So I'm pleased. I haven't seen this beautiful lady in a long time, so I'm glad she could make the time. But I'll let her introduce herself. She's our lovely guest this week.
Hi, I am Ruramai, Munyanyi. Most people just call me Rura. I think I say my full name now that I'm like working. I say that a lot more than I ever really did. Mm-hmm. But my name is Rura. Mm-hmm. I do nothing else but work. Okay. And I think I'm a creative on the low. Like
you are a creative I feel like this is the gig economy, so everyone has work that pays the bills, and then everyone has their passion project.
Yeah, and I think it's also very African too. Tell me an African in Africa or outside Africa who isn't selling a bundle or a bag.
And the latest hustle I've seen is like cakes.
Dude, everybody's catering.
Baking. But I mean, it's such a business. There's so many weddings. Yeah. So many booze. So thrive, young people.
Exactly. If nothing else. Like I remember back in the day, it was a thing about you had to find like an academic job or whatever. Yeah. But it's like people that went to like, you know, they follow their passion for food and all these things. They went to like a Swiss school and stuff, and they're like, oh, they're making so much money.
They are
from food. Yeah.
I know for us, I don't know about you guys, but I know that the wedding industry has just like blown out of proportions. So all of the, I guess, event planners and all of that, it's just like a multi-million-dollar business. And here I am with like a degree that but no regrets. I feel like it's life.
A degree is a degree. In the end, it can translate. It's basically to show you, like, firstly, my boyfriend's from here, so he sees things very differently. Yeah. For me, it's like I had to have a specialized degree and like a degree that like works. And for him, it was like, you know what, a degree just gets you inside the door.
This is a conversation I have with my dad every time.
Yeah.
Hi, Kanwani, or hi, daughter. And I'm like, hi, Dad. How's life? And he'll be like, yeah, life's good. So when are you going to grad school? Without fail.
Exactly. You gotta specialize.
Every single time. So I guess some people really do have that mindset. Because for him, his concern now is like, it's just an undergrad degree. Yeah. Everyone has one of those. So you have to differentiate yourself. So like you said, the specializing, higher school, like you just keep racking up all of these specializations. Yeah.
But I think it's also just like, I don't know if we don't have, I don't know if we look at education differently from people here, or we don't have the luxury to look at it the way they look at it here.
No, I agree with what you said, because I feel like people here do have the luxury to have a whole different set of problems.
Yeah.
So I guess it's a combination of both. But even looking in our lives, my brothers love to play soccer, but my dad was just like, you could break your legs anytime and it will all be over. And you see, you're not even given a chance to attempt your dreams. And then you could have made it, and you'd have made $1 million. I don't know, soccer players football players earn a lot of money.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, I'm rueful. But I know at Trust maybe we'll be fair when we have children. And
hopefully.
Mom, I want to be a ballet dancer.
Yeah, we'll just support the dream, man. As long as they're willing to work at it. I think that's the thing that's the best thing to instill. Okay. The work ethic at something. And then
some things just don't seem so viable. I'm trying to think of something absurd. But in this day and age, people get paid for anything. So
people get paid for pictures online.
Instagram model?
Yeah.
Like, Mom, I want to be an Instagram model.
Yeah. And look, I was just saying that, like, if my child will be making their college tuition from baby, there'll be no Huggies.
Are you one of those people who like start an Instagram page for your kids as soon as they're
Maybe.
born?
I'm not even active on my own Instagram. But if that's how, so that they have like, if that's what they can invest in their next like career when they're older, it just makes them more financially viable, and they've made this money by themselves.
That's true. I don't know how to feel about baby Instagram.
I have a secret. I go around like reporting and blocking all the mixed baby Instagrams.
Why? But you're gonna have a mixed baby.
Yeah, that's just like, it feels like exploitation. I know, it's confusing.
Yeah.
It just feels like exploitation.
The McClure twins, yeah, that makes me very uncomfortable.
No, it makes
but
me so uncomfortable.
Yeah, but
yeah,
I don't know. People still fetishize that.
That's what it is.
That's a conversation for another day.
Yep. Sorry.
That's okay. So you see, so that started off. I guess it's also because we just came in from work and we're still rueful. So Rura and I, where did that age factor come in? We're just talking about our experiences from work because we're catching up. It's been a long time since we saw each other, and then it's just kind of like, whoo, work.
Yeah.
Work.
Yeah.
And I asked Ali that question, like, who really loves their 9 to 5 out there? Are they? I guess some people do like the security, and you wake up. Some people are okay with routine. I personally don't think that works for me. I've found.
Yeah.
And I'm still yet to find a job that would pay me to really be flexible and like wake up when I want, work when I want. And I feel that's when I would be most productive. But some people do believe people are productive when they come into the office, check in, and just seated at this desk with a bunch of other people. And I mean, if they're paying me, then I have to do what they they want.
Yeah.
But that's totally fair. So this is Black History Month. I feel like I've gone through this History Month not being aware that it was History Month. It was just kind of like, oh, it's February. But I know like so many things have happened.
Yeah.
And one of those is we're supposedly boycotting Gucci and Prada.
Yeah.
So I wanted to know what your thoughts were on the boycotts. And
firstly, I don't have Gucci or Prada money. This boycott does not affect me at all. However, it has me looking at somebody who, like, I know I'm like raggedy looking now.
No, you are not raggedy.
But like, I do love fashion. I do love to look at it, and I do love to be wistful. But I think, you know, as much as I like hate this outrage culture, I think it is teaching us something about really holding companies accountable where we spend our money.
Yeah.
Like usually, like I've always kind of like slowly but surely been feeling very wary of just like buying things from everywhere. It's not like, no, a sale is great, but like I think you think about the quality, you think about where it comes from, you think about the labor, like all these other things, and like, and you also think about like that company's ethos and stuff, and like it's really disappointing because you think of what the symbol. It's like finding out that Mercedes-Benz is racist. It probably is, but like just really like finding like it being so disrespectfully out there.
Yeah.
In the way that like. And it's something you're supposed to aspire to, like the African household. You buy a Mercedes-Benz, you've made it. You've made it. Or you've bought your first Gucci belt because, you know, it's probably...
Everyone has a Gucci belt.
Exactly.
I feel like if I had a free Gucci belt, I would, like, wear my sweater over it.
No.
It would just really be for the function and not to floss because it's just too much. You see some people's Instagrams and every single picture is with that one Gucci belt. I'm like...
And at the same time, it's like, you know what? It's like, if the leather is good, if it's functional, if it's that belt, like, don't look down, but this belt is ratted.
Be kind to yourself. It's a good belt. A good belt will hold my jeans up, and if it works, it works till it falls apart.
Exactly.
Because we care about the planet, and we're not out here buying
belts. Which is the other argument about Gucci and them, is that like if they're supposed to be super good and like you shouldn't have to buy like 1,500 belts. Like that should last you 15 years. You should be able to pass it down to your children.
People argue about that, but there's a difference between paying for a good quality belt that, like you said, you'd pass down to your children. But then the premium on these products isn't based on the quality.
No, it isn't.
Because there is no belt. Even if we got the finest leather, this is a calf that ate the finest of grass.
The finest of soil.
Yeah, the finest of soil. There's no way the belt would still be $400.
For real.
And I work in retail.
Yeah.
I haven't had too much experience with knowing what the cost is, but I do know that the markups are ridiculous.
I've heard 300.
Yeah.
US dollars.
Yeah, so you see, like, it probably costs them, if anything, they could say made in Italy, but it's still made in China somehow. And they're making $300 off of a cost of $50 or something
exactly.
like that. So I also like to believe that yes, cheap is expensive in the long run if you're constantly replacing things, but I also don't think it's right. Well, just because I don't have Gucci money right now, maybe that's why I'm rationalizing.
Exactly. I was thinking the same thing.
It's okay. So like you, I don't have Gucci money, but I like to look at fashion. I like to look at nice things. It's hard sometimes to work in retail and actually sell nice things to people, and you're wistful. But I mean, like you said, we aspire to these things, but to only find out that the companies don't have people who look like us in mind
Exactly.
is hurtful.
It's so hurtful, especially because we're pushing their
Yeah.
product. Like they create this demand for it, and we've gone above and beyond to push. By us, I mean like the celebrities
Yeah.
of color and like all these other people have gone above and beyond to push these products to assert them as like the
The
symbol.
indie.
Yeah, the symbol of like having made it. And then once we have all that free promo, you've like how much money have they made from rappers? like how much money has Gucci made? Gucci Soldier
Yeah.
Boy voice. That white headband is iconic.
Based on the strength of that one interview. But
Exactly.
so someone said, how long do the boycotts last for then? Do we give the companies a chance to change, or is it we just know they're just doing damage control?
Ooh,
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know. Like I just feel like you can always tell when somebody's apologizing and trying. I'm trying to think. I've had these conversations before, and I've had examples, and I just don't remember now. But I do feel like I was just reading what their plan was.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that sounds good.
Was it Prada who are going to start a diversity council or something?
Yeah, with
Yeah.
Ava DuVernay.
Yeah, with Ava DuVernay.
That sounds good. I love Ava. I love Miss Ava. But like no, she's being paid to do it.
Of course.
So you think
So some
about
people are calling her a sellout.
oh.
Yeah. Because it's like you're being paid. So, like, she could have the best intentions, but is this where you completely... Because the thing with boycotts, look, we're supposed to be boycotting H&M, but that slowly went quiet. Because, you know, we only need a basic tee here and there, or an outfit that would cost you $30. But
Yeah. I feel like I think it's personal. Like I think when you feel like personally, I feel like I'm not ready. If I had Gucci money,
yeah.
I'd be like, oh, okay, what work are you doing? You know what? And once I know, and then something came up with Dapper Dan.
Oh, yeah, he did a collaboration with Gucci.
Yeah, and he was like, he did this whole thing about, oh, how are you supposed to learn if you don't, because people were saying, because I think part of their apology program, apology tour,
Yes.
part of their apology program was that they were giving internships or like,
To people. Oh, yeah, I saw that. That would be cool. I mean,
Yeah.
if they're just doing it for PR, I would be happy that people
That's
can still benefit
Yeah,
from it
yeah,
at least. So I'm
yeah.
fine with that. Have you ever had any personal boycotts, be it a bad experience you had, be it a chain store or a little store, and you just chose to never go there again?
oh, I do it all the time.
Really?
Secretly. I mean,
Okay.
boycotting secretly. Like, I
Okay.
have things that I feel like I've kind of, I had a thing with Kevin Hart for a while.
Okay.
I know I should be boycotting a lot more people because I feel like my interest as a black woman or as an African, because also my other thing also is that my interest as an immigrant African woman are very different too.
Yeah.
And I felt like some of my faves are very weird. All these love after lock up. What is it? No, 90 Day
Yeah, 90
Fiance.
Day Fiancé, yeah.
Like the conversations around that sometimes are like, I haven't boycotted, but I'm watching.
I finally let go of Love and Hip Hop. Which I don't know. I just interest slowly just
Yeah.
waned, and I'm like
Yeah.
it's too much now. so
Yeah.
I don't even know what I watch anymore. But
I had let go for a really long time. Then one day I was braiding my hair,
yeah,
and my friend was like in town, and we're in this Airbnb, and there was this Real Housewives. There was this marathon, and I'm back at it.
I feel like it just takes one episode to suck you in. Like
Yeah.
I say I've walked away, but I still. That's the thing. We also have Instagram now, so it's like you get to see the people in real time. You're not just watching them on TV to get a hold of them.
Yeah.
But this kind of leads. So people are like, okay, if we do boycott the brands, then what are our alternatives? Because it's also like the discussion of how black people don't spend money in their own community, so be it black or African. But there's this joke of how let's say the Chinese community would be able to keep $1 in their community for I don't know how long, because they do have businesses. So let's say someone has $1, they could go to a Chinese store, spend it there. That Chinese store owner will spend it at some other Chinese owner's place. Whereas for us as Black people, we don't have that many options out there. So it's like, okay, we boycott, but what's the next brand that is almost an equivalent to Gucci that we could spend our money on to floss?
Girl, I think it's also like, I always feel like with the Chinese is population wise, and I think their policies are very different. Like their foreign policies are, like they have policy that's been set in place that will ensure them access to the market that Black people don't have.
Okay.
And so I think it would be easier, like let's say for a t-shirt, if I wanted a white t-shirt, it would be easier at home because I feel like, you know, there's a backdoor tailor who's sewing white t-shirts or NB or like, which is probably really great, like cotton material and stuff. Like, we just don't have the access to it. So here, I feel, it's like you do the best you can. Like I might not be able to get like my white tees, like I'd have to get them from H&M. But I feel like, I found a good like skincare brand from an indigenous company. So that's where I get a lot of my skincare from.
That's good. And Rura, I don't want to say, and guys, Rura has amazing skin. So I'm going to ask her to plug where she gets her stuff from. Yeah.
Okay. No, so things like that, like where I feel I can help. That's how I look at it. So yeah, it's just little by little. Like you find the things that are most accessible to you. I find in America they'll have like things that are they'll have more options than we do.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So yeah, and I don't know, maybe home stuff. I don't know.
So this leads into the blessing of the week. I wanted to highlight this designer from South Africa. So he makes luxury leather bags. And I think his name is, how do you pronounce this? Cyril?
Yeah, I think it's Cyril.
Cyril Ramaphosa has a brand called Ingangubeka.
Oh.
Yeah, and the bags look pretty modern and sleek, but it's just like we have so many emerging designers being in our own countries. And these are people who you can support. So like you said, you do go out of your way to support the smaller indigenous businesses. And that's what I think we need to do more of, because yes, just like you, I want a Gucci belt. So people can say that there's someone who I should not mess with, or there's someone who has it going on. But if we could place as much importance and worth in people who do look like us and design products that we can relate to and are also good looking, that would be good.
And you know what's nice? I always find about like things I didn't appreciate from like home, because you know it was the thing to buy your stuff from South Africa or America or like that was the thing. But I didn't appreciate how organic our stuff was. Like I keep saying, like our t-shirts, that's real cotton, straight from the cotton farms.
Well, we have cotton farms here too.
Yeah, but it's not the same. It's not the same climate. It's gonna be real leather, sustainable leather, because you know they don't have. Well, I don't know about South Africa now, but you'd like to think that they don't have the kind of the mass production machines that they have here. So it's sustainable, and it's like if you're gonna kill a cow, like kill a cow, eat everything, use all the leather, use all the horns, do everything, but like sustainably. That's another thing I'm like super like passionate about, and I find the industrial complex is ruined. You know, the idea that like it's just produce and waste, produce and waste.
There are times that I think about that too, because I remember when coming here, my dad, I think, had studied abroad for like his graduate degree. So, you know, he had these old school ideas of like what it was to really be an immigrant student. So he's like, when you go there, you all you need is 2 pairs of jeans and 3 t-shirts, and you'll be fine. And I couldn't fathom it for the life of me. But I recently moved, and I only had like a suitcase of clothes with me, and I've been wearing the same clothes, and I'm not dead.
No,
I'm not.
No, I had to downsize. You saw my first place. My first place was huge.
Yeah.
And once we moved to like smaller places, it was like we had to really downsize, and I've been fine. And the thing is, people here do it too. Like, I hate to say this, I feel like a lot of it is like in the early African communities.
Yeah.
It's like where we're still kind of like, I think we bring it from home, a sense of feeling unworthy, and we feel like we have to dress a certain kind of way
To make up for it?
Yeah, I don't even know what it is.
I guess it is a culture because here, at least Vancouver, people do say that people are severely underdressed sometimes, even for work. I mean,
Yeah.
slowly but quickly, yeah, it's business casual everywhere, and that casual sometimes is just too casual.
It's real casual. It's 3/4
And
casual.
you have to make sure to tell people explicitly to not wear yoga pants
Yeah.
because people might just push that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's definitely that difference, like you said. I don't know, but I got comfortable really quickly. But what you said was true. You're going to college and then you're dressing up to the nines, makeup, hair, and all of that. But you're here for school. So there are times when I'm just like, I'm trying to get as much sleep as I can. Wake up with just
Exactly.
enough time to shower and make it to the bus. And
Yeah.
that's it for me. But then there's also the argument of where you feel, if you look good, you feel good.
Yeah, I believe that
So
too.
I mean, putting in effort for yourself, you do feel that extra special when you put lip gloss on or that thing where
Yeah.
you tied your hair up differently. So
Yeah.
it's just being comfortable in that space. But you're right, less is more, and it's been a good practice. I mean, your choices are limited. You know what you're going to wear. My
Yeah.
life has definitely been easier
Yeah.
with less.
I mean, that doesn't mean that I don't love to shop or I don't
Mhm.
love clothes or I don't love fashion. Like, I think part of it, you're saying that, like, it makes you feel good when you're dressed a certain kind of way. But I think it's also just, like, not putting your worth. I think we've been engineered to really
Yeah.
place a huge amount of worth on appearances,
Yeah,
on making sure things appear right.
and that's why you need a Gucci belt.
Tie everything together.
Yeah, your worth is somewhat tied to that. So.
Yeah. So I think it's just, if you feel like sometimes you need a gloss, get your gloss, but don't feel like if you don't have that gloss, you're not going to be okay. That's all I'm saying.
That's word to the wise. So just to follow up on Cyril's business, but in 2016, Forbes named him on their list of the top 30 Africans under 30. So this is he had this tweet that went viral. So once he tweeted this, like, he just got a rush of orders and he was sold out. But his backstory was, I'm just a boy from the village of Nkweleni, Eastern Cape, with a dream that someday my brand would be recognized internationally as one of the best luxury leather good brands to come out of Africa. Watch this space.
So dope.
Imagine that.
So dope. Like, why
Yeah.
couldn't we do this?
So, for everyone who's out there, everything starts with a dream. Because I just had this realization, like, every company you see, be it McDonald's, Walmart, all of that was an idea in someone's mind.
Yeah.
And it grew to be big. So there's no such thing as a small beginning. And so we do need more options out there for fashion options. So for shoes, I love shoes. I should maybe start a shoe brand. Who
Why
knows?
not?
Exactly. So,
Why not? And try. Like, Patricia Bright is
Yeah.
always saying, if you're gonna fail, do it, but fail quickly and move on.
yeah.
And like, just like, I might actually buy her book, to be honest.
You'd be supporting a black woman.
Yeah.
So
But like, I always felt like when she said that, I was like, I'm very wary of like motivational speakers.
Yeah.
Very wary, because I'm like, that was you.
But I feel like Patricia has the credentials to back it up, because I've had this discussion with my friend. What kind of like, what qualifications does one need to be a motivational speaker? Because there's too many IG people just like spouting words. But
Wow.
I want to see how you apply these principles to your life and how they work
Exactly.
for you and can be replicated by other people to work.
That last part, the replication part, isn't that even science? Like, that's part of like proving, like, if you're part of your theory is to show if it can be replicated.
Yeah.
So like that last bit, I hear that a lot about, like, what was it? This white lady, the one who used to say you could do it all. Why have I forgotten about this? She used to be talking about like, you can both have a career and like you can.
Susie Warren?
I don't remember who it was, but like, I think the way she put it was very like, it wasn't nuanced enough to include women of color. Very Ivanka Trump-ish.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how it usually goes, because there's this brand of feminism, but like you said, our experiences are also very different. It's a white woman would definitely have more opportunities out there, so you can be both a mom and a career woman and everything else that you want to be. It's not as hard, but if you have a bit more color to you,
it might be a little, and not to discount her experience,
No,
but I
of
do
course.
feel like if you're going to, you should be careful of the kind of rhetoric you're spewing out there, because then it invokes feelings of shame on some other people's parts.
Yeah.
People feel like, oh, why, like, she can do it, why can't I do it?
So is
Or,
it
like,
kind of like how people should acknowledge when they do speak from a place of privilege?
yes.
Okay, yeah. And I do like some people who are forthcoming and say that, you know, my success isn't based on my hard work or like my intelligence, but I was just lucky.
Sometimes it's opportunity.
Yeah, some people are just like, I just happen to know the right people.
Yeah.
I happen to be close enough to them, and that's because there's some people who are really just like, I can't tell you how I became a millionaire or I became this tech person, and that honesty is refreshing.
That's
sometimes.
part of the story too. Like, I feel like people don't talk about that, so because people always want to have this thing of like they need to feel like they've worked so hard for something, and like, you know, and you probably have, but I think it's also worth acknowledging, because I think the messaging is, considering how quick it is to spew, it can be very, very detrimental.
Because they're telling you like, oh, 18-year-old founded company,
Exactly.
whatever, and you're like, whoa,
it's like,
what
whoa.
of me?
Oh, what about me?
That's okay. But so I guess the topic I was hoping to discuss today was the idea of mental health, and I know you're someone who's practiced like self-care and has tried to advocate to your circle of friends the importance of mental health and all that comes with it. So I just wanted to ask you, when did you first become aware of the concept or the importance of mental health, and how that changed your life once you were aware of that?
I think I was very young. I've always been very anxious.
Okay.
Like, I've always been very, very anxious. And the thing with like mental illness is that like it's one of those things where it's like it's there, but it's very hard to explain. And then it's also when it's very hard to explain, and so on one end, on the other hand, it's very hard to it's very hard for other people to see.
Yeah.
So I do feel like that kind of like the combination of those two isolates you. And so like it gives you a sense of having to really just like, it's very personal work. Like, it's like if you're lucky enough that somebody sees you and you get the help, and you know, somebody understands, yeah, you know, great. Or, you know, if you're lucky enough that you have the words to
articulate,
exactly, then it's great. So I know as a kid I didn't really understand why I was always feeling like on edge. Sorry, and always anxious. So like I just used to like I found ways to just calm myself down. I read a lot. Was doing face masks at like 12.
Oh wow, you're ahead of the curve.
I was like taking egg whites. What was my other face mask? I think it was the egg white. The egg white was like people used to be like, oh, that's just like, you know, like so skin and stuff. But like I think it was just like my way of just taking my time in the morning before school to calm down, because I've definitely had times where like all homework is done and I just like I couldn't breathe.
Oh my.
I would like come into I remember that was my first time I felt like, oh, something's off. My mom was like, what's wrong? You just don't want to go to school because you haven't done your homework.
Like, no, Mom, it's
which is
done.
fair, because at times I didn't do my homework, again, because of anxiety. Like, it's not that I'm dumb, but I just like always had this anxiety of like I can really start things, and like so like I found a way to like I felt that I had to do the work by myself. So as a kid, like I would just prioritize that, you know. I would like do the art and do all that, and that's my way of relaxing. I would read a lot. That was my escape. And I was also very wary of the stuff that I consumed, not in like I just was very because a lot of my anxiety was coming from my environment, and like just Zimbabwe is not normal. I think we normalize a lot of things, but the instability of Zimbabwe is just not normal, and I think I was manifesting that. Like, even though like my family was fine, like comparatively my family was fine, but like you just feel the idea of just always on edge. It translates, and the people around you always being on edge translates. And so like I just had to find ways to like center myself, and so I just like I got into it. I don't even know how I can tell you when, but and then that was the most pivotal moment. My second most pivotal moment was coming here. Like I think I just I didn't prepare myself mentally the way I should have. So before I knew it, it was like cold, and I was like, what is happening? Why do we feel like sleeping all day?
Imagine that, and you come and then winter, and the days are shorter, longer nights.
Yeah, and I was like, why do we feel this way? And like, because I was like, I'm generally like, I'm not positive, but I think I've got like an upbeat sense to myself, and so like when you kind of see the difference when you're like, oh, we're not as upbeat, we don't want to be social, we don't want to do this, you isolate yourself, and that's when I felt like, oh, we gotta do something.
Yeah, we have to do something.
Yeah, we have to do something. So I definitely went to SFU Health and Counseling Services.
That's great.
Yeah.
I think it's impressive that even at a young age, there's despair, and I'd imagine that's a common reaction for most people when you don't know what's wrong with you and you can't say what's wrong with you and you just languish. But for you actively found these ways that made you feel better.
Yeah.
And I don't know how do you feel about medication? I know with children it's probably not the best thing, but you found these activities that worked for you. Knowing that, and now we have a bit more education about the topic, how would you feel about medication?
I think if it's absolutely necessary, it's like you can't, if somebody comes with you like, it's like, honestly, vaccinations. Sometimes you just need them. Yeah. Sometimes if you don't want to get the polio or the measles, sometimes you just need it. That's how I feel about medication. But I do think that I also drink like licorice. Like a licorice echinacea mix for my allergies. Okay. Even though I do take Reactin, but sometimes if like I feel like, oh, let's see if this natural supplement works, or like, before like I'm gonna go to antidepressants or whatever, then that's like, let's talk to the doctor about the vitamins, let's talk to the doctor about changing your diet and journaling and all these other things. Like I think they should be your first line of attack. Okay. And I think also just it's really important to feel let's just say somebody might, or especially a child, like it's very important for us to be understanding in a way that like I don't feel other generations.
We're judging that too, but I guess just the context in which we grew up in and how not much was said about mental health. There weren't that many options except just pray about it.
Oh, pull up your bootstraps. Like you know that alcoholic uncle or that cousin that just like people thought was lazy because they wouldn't wake up, or like I just like I'm seeing it now more and more. That aunt who was hearing voices and like they were like, oh, just go get incense from church. I mean, obviously I think I remember my aunt, I think she was on medication. But I think it's a kind of isolating the way, and it sucks because like Africa needs it.
We do. After everything
we've been through,
people have been through. Someone was like, we all need free therapy. Yeah. So yeah. No, you're right. For us, at least, what I grew up hearing, the only thing that was probably ever discussed that alluded to mental health was depression. So and it was like a depression that seemed to have an explanation for it. So like, let's say, oh, her husband died, so she just got so depressed that she died. So depression is just this immense sadness. But depression is this chemical imbalance. Like you said, just so you just don't want to get out of bed. It manifests in so many different ways, but that was the only possibility. So I had, like, when you think about it, every other muscle in your body gets exercise. We walk every day, sit, but what of your brain? Exactly. So it's just surprising that it took so long for mental health to become this important. Yeah. So I'm glad that we actually got to a point where it's important and people have more discussions, and some workplaces do offer, like, I guess, personal days off, because it does take a toll on you. Like, for me, I know the routine. The repetitive nature. Exactly. But I don't have that. But a hope is that one day that would be like a standard across every other place.
I heard Zimbabwe has like a friendship bench thing.
Really?
Like outside the doctors. Like it's labeled a friendship bench. And considering, like, Zimbabwe resource-wise, a lot of stealing has been happening.
That's every African country, and it happens here too.
Yeah, but I think it's very innovative in the way that it figures out solutions for big problems. You know, they're finally saying, oh, mental health. You know, there's peer counselor programs that used to be in schools. This friendship bench thing, like, it's just starting the conversation is so important. And I think, you know, it's not where it's supposed to be, but I do think the beginning is nice. Like, I do feel it's hopeful. It's hopeful. You just sit there and you're like, you know what? Something's wrong.
No, that's true. But I guess we grew up in the previous. I don't want to say I previously recorded with BK, so the episode will be out tomorrow. But we just kind of allude to what it's like growing up as a man in Africa. Yeah, and it's like asking for help. I know as girls, I don't have a problem asking for help when I need it. I know some people do have pride, or because I know there are these stories of maybe, let's say you go to visit someone and your mom's like, don't you dare ask for food. Exactly. My mom never really did that to me, but you know, there's just those things instilled in you where you're like, don't ask for food if you're at someone else's house because it will look like we don't feed you. Yeah. Which is kind of funny, but then is it like this whole keeping up appearances where you don't want to ask for help when you need it, or the stigma that comes with seeming, because if you said someone had a mental health issue, first people would just say, oh, she's crazy, she's mad. Exactly. It's like,
and you know, it's so funny because I always think about the conversation about mental health as like, you know, back in the day when it was a thing that women got. Yeah. Every time hysteria. A woman, hysteria. Every time she felt like she had rights, she had hysteria, or she was a witch. It's like I'm reading Homegoing, which I think you might have read. Yes, I've read Homegoing. I don't know if you remember. I'm rereading it. Okay. So I don't know if you remember. There's this bit where like one of the descendants, Afia, she was born she was born during a fire or something like that, and they were like the witch child, the fire child. Like, what?
We're very superstitious people, and you find all these links that you'd see only if you're looking for them. So exactly, I don't know. Are coincidences special to you, or are they just coincidences?
Very. I feel very intuitive. Okay. I think a part of like, you know, as much as I feel anxious and a slight case of depression.
Everyone has a slight case of depression.
Yeah, like I always feel like as again, I was just saying.
But I'm not diagnosing anyone. Exactly. I'm not an expert.
Exactly.
There's highs and lows with everyone's life. So that's.
I just feel like immigrants have all taken that depression nap in the winters where you just like your girl has been sleeping all day and you're like, and they're just like, oh, I'm not feeling it. But oh yes, I suggest you go to a doctor. I know it's expensive, but if you're in school, insurance and counseling services really helped me out a lot. I don't know what I'm gonna do now.
You know, just employ your friends as part-time therapists.
Yeah, not sponsored Talkspace, but sorry, I got distracted.
Yeah, you're talking about immigrants and how we take depression on, and
oh no, it was something you just asked.
I lost my train of thought too. Oh, okay. Anyway, it's about Africans and I guess asking for help. Or are we trying to keep up appearances and not admitting to needing help?
Yeah, no, because we're supposed to look strong, right? Yeah. Like I think a lot of it goes back to colonialism. I think we really need to we're supposed to be strong. We're supposed to have no feelings, and so we buried all these feelings, and we I don't know where we thought they were going to go. They obviously manifest themselves in certain ways, right?
You know what I just realized? Because when talking to BK in the episode about how African men, you grow up being told you're supposed to be strong and not show emotions. But then there's also the trope of the strong black woman. Yeah. So is it like black people aren't allowed to have feelings?
It's dehumanized, right? It's like if we have feelings, then you can't just whip us, right?
Oh, there's that.
But yes, I do feel very intuitive. Like a part of I feel with my mental illness makes me very sensitive, but I don't always look at that as like as a negative. I found that I'm very it's part of what makes me a great personal assistant. Okay. Because I'm good at like anticipating needs and reading people most of the times, and like understanding and stuff like that. So I do feel intuitive. There are many times where it's like, I don't know if it's like, girl, I am Christian. Let me preface by saying to all the aunties out there, I
Yes.
am Christian.
Mhm.
But I also do feel that I think the universe communicates with you, and it's up to you to pick up on that. You know, there have been moments like my boyfriend's gone out and I've been like, oh, careful on the roads, or like, you know, and that's not because like I know things, but it's also because I've just realized like, oh, it's snowing out there, and like there's just something like about like putting things together. Your brain puts things together,
Make sense out of things, like patterns. And
exactly, in
stuff like
in ways that you don't understand, and you do it passively and reflexively. That I think that's what intuition is, and I believe very strongly in it. I think my mom has really always felt like she was like, oh, I have a feeling. She's mostly
moms
always
are
right.
like that.
Yeah. And I
So
feel
is it like something that will come to us when we become mothers, where you just have this intuition passed down to you?
it's just like it's
here it is.
I think it's there. I think if you let yourself feel things, I think maybe that's part of why, because I've always let myself feel things. I've also inherited that ability to just, you know, to feel like things are happening around me. Like I wouldn't want to just feel like powerless, which is a lot of times what mental illness does to you. So like in the moments where like you feel strength, you feel that, oh, I'm in the middle of this, things are happening around me, and I'm also happening with them, you know.
No, I get that feeling sometimes, and I just want to go back. So you mentioned something about, you were trying to preface it, saying like, oh, I'm Christian, but I feel the universe is saying something. And I feel like, can those two coexist? If God made everything, wouldn't God be the universe and everything around it? And that if you pick up, and I guess everything could communicate to you, because in a sense, God is in us. God is in everything around us too.
Yeah. I totally believe that. I believe the God is the universe, but I think I've also, like, the way I perceive my Christianity is that God can also be, I think he's omniprescient. Is that the word? Omnipresent.
It's omnipresent, omniscient.
Omnipresent is what I mean.
Everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere. And so, like, I do believe he is, but I think the universe works for him, and so I separate the two.
Okay.
Personally,
I'm at an interesting stage in my walk in Christianity, because I've tried to have conversations with my mom, because growing up, I guess you are African, but you come here and then there's Black History Month, and of course you start opening your mind up to seeing what colonialism and slavery was all about. So it's like the missionaries came and then colonialism happened. So there's this one saying that's always in my mind. It's like where the missionary came with his Bible and with the message, and then we all prayed together, and when we said amen, he had our land, and we had nothing. So it's like, it can't be that our religions from before were just these pagan wrong things, because when you now see the so many evils that happen in the name of Jesus that came with colonialism, it's like, how much of this was manipulated to purely just profit off of people and like steal people's land?
Oh, that's the Book of Eli.
So I haven't seen it, but it just made me question. So I'm asking, like, okay, what did our ancestors pray to the sun? And my mom's just like, you know, they probably didn't have a name for it then, but the sun, it's not that they prayed to the sun directly per se, but this was just something for them. So we now have crosses and pictures beat in churches, and that's how we choose to symbolize, I guess, Jesus now. But for them, they just chose the sun, because I guess the sun, it was just special to them. So they prayed to a god. The name was different, beat Lesa, I don't know what you'd call God in Shona, but Wari, but you're just praying to someone, but it's not that, of course, you pray to the sun. So anyway, it's just interesting to me. So I'm just trying to explore that part of me that could have been lost, and seeing where Christianity and African religion tie into each other, and the importance of that. So
no, I feel the same way. I think I'm on the same journey too. I think I've always felt like I think I kind of always knew that there was something off about Christianity. And that's not to say I don't believe. I just think I believe in my way. And it's not in the blind way that I was taught to believe. Like, I remember I'd just be in the car talking to my mom, and she was just like, oh, don't question it too much. Don't think too much. Or like, and what I'm grateful for is that my practice of Christianity has always had a strong traditional influence.
Oh, that's good.
Like, I think a lot of my friends are going to like the white Catholic churches. my Catholic church was very like, we had drums and rattles, hoshonin.
Yeah, a lot of us also, I know I went to a Catholic boarding school and we had lots of drums. It was very traditional in a sense, but there are these cases, be it in books or textbooks, or even from stories and people where like some of the white priests are like, no, don't play drums, that's pagan music. So it's like, but that's how we best know how to worship. So you have people, I guess, policing how you worship and how you pray. So part of me is just like, there's so many things I have to reconcile in my mind. But like at the end of the day, your walk, be it religion, whatever you choose in life, is personal. And it should be a conviction that comes to you because that's what you choose for yourself. And I know it's hard. We grow up going to church, so I know I'm indoctrinated.
No, heavy. Heavy. Oh, heavy. And I always say like, as I think it's very personal, and I think it's different being outside of it. I think we're like fish out of water here. So you kind of see things. A lot of like, part of like the shaming and policing of religion at home was also kind of just like trying to make sure trying to make yourself look like the prototype. That's the best of the group.
And you all go to church and meet in social circles, and if you're not there, then there's something wrong.
It's been like 4 weeks you haven't been to church. People start judging you, as opposed to like people not trying to understand you. And I think again that comes from colonialism. The shaming of who you are is colonialism. So my rule of thumb lately has been anything that makes me feel ashamed, and within reason. Within reason. You do need a little bit of restraint, but anything that makes me feel shame, which then leads to anxiety and depression, I wouldn't like to engage in. So I feel like I'm trying to find a way of like taking the essence of Christianity, the goodness of it, minus the shame that was injected into it from everything else.
Would you find that it's easier for you to have a conversation regarding mental health with your peers now, I guess, compared to before?
And I think also before we just didn't know how to articulate it. I remember there were times like I had friends that I had to talk to every day. Like, I don't know what it was, but we just knew that we're going through things, and we had to talk to each other. So it would be like, we don't know what we're going through, but every time it's something, it's like, oh.
Do you know what my earliest recollection of you and mental health is?
What?
We had an ASA meeting, and I think everyone was stressed out about something. And then Rura decided to like turn off the lights, and she's like, "Guys, we're going to meditate." And I'm like, "What is happening?" So she turned off the lights and started playing this music, and everyone's just like, "This girl has lost her mind." And looking back, meditation may have helped the situation. You just need to sit down and breathe sometimes. And I was really just like, Rura has lost her mind.
That's totally me.
Yeah, but she was just trying to help. So now people are more forthcoming. I know people are very sensitive about how much they're willing to disclose, but I feel there's not so much of a stigma anymore. Because if you also understand it, sometimes it's just a chemical imbalance in your body. So it's not really that someone is sick or is schizophrenic. It's just some wiring in their brain is off, and they just need some help too.
And it's like, you don't ask to be born with it. It's like we don't give people that are born, who can't walk the hard time, which is like, it's the cards of adult. It's just hard with mental illness because like it's so hard to understand. It's like you can't really like you can't measure. Like,
this is how healthy you are.
There's no physical marker. I mean, sometimes there is. Some people want control. Some people stop eating. Some people eat too much or these other things, but those are the physical markers, and that's what we should be looking at. Like, instead of like fat shaming people,
that's true.
It's like, why are they living this way? I remember going to people's homes with it. It was just so dirty.
And I was just like,
and I was just like, and because I was like taught, like, you're taught that, oh, everybody's home should be clean, but like sometimes it's like people can't do it, So you ask, like, why is your environment in this way? Would we then say it's kind of like a reflection of their mind? I kind of feel like, so maybe they, like you mentioned, we have compassion for people who maybe just can't have the strength to do it. But for me, sometimes my environment is a reflection of what's going on in my mind. So the chaos and all of that. And if you're okay with it, then truly
I don't know. There are times when isn't there that Karl Lagerfeld quote that's going around because R.I.P.
Yeah, R.I.P.
I didn't really know him, and
neither did I.
But
I'm not quick to stand because I don't know.
Yeah. And I don't have Chanel, so it's not that personal to me. And it's just kind of like people that it seems like a simple or vain quote where he's like, when you wear sweatpants, it's a sign that you've given up. But it's yeah, and then some people were reflecting on that because it's just like you think like, oh, he means he must be fashionable at all times, but it's just like these moments when you just let go and stop taking care of yourself.
Exactly.
So if you're living in like filth, then really there's something wrong if you don't feel that that's wrong.
Yeah, and sometimes it's like that's the other thing about like it's another important thing about mental illness. Like I talk about like how I felt like anxious as a kid. It's like there's no time frame to it. You know what I mean? Like if something, especially if like something manifests itself at a certain time and you're feeling like if anybody out there is feeling it at this time, and like it's definitely been years in the making. You know, sometimes it's like triggered by certain events that happens, but a lot of times like the one you're seeing, the chronic one you're seeing these days, it's years in the making. And I think people should really be patient with each other.
And patient with themselves too.
Yeah.
Because we often treat people a lot better than we would treat ourselves.
Exactly. So
that's one thing I couldn't stress hard enough, because I was like, even the self-talk that you have. So this also leads into mental health. What conversations are you having with yourself? Are you your biggest fan, or are you your biggest critic, which is what happens most of the time, where you would fixate over something that you did wrong but that someone wouldn't care to do.
Forgotten.
Exactly. Or you just speak so negatively to yourself when you would never dare say some of those things to someone else, another person. So it takes me a while to get out of my head sometimes, because there's imposter syndrome.
Girl.
And you think of the what ifs and everything that could possibly go wrong.
Exactly.
But things could go good too.
I think even for me, I've also stopped thinking that like things can go good too, because like you know, things don't go too good.
No, but they could.
But I think it's hard to tell somebody with an experience of just things constantly going like sometimes things don't align for people. You know, like it could be the color of their skin, or it could be their circumstance, or their bracket, or just like timing, man. The universe conspires in very weird ways.
That's true.
And God's watching, but the universe is conspiring in very weird ways.
There is that. But I don't know. There are some people who just seem to always resign, who just feel resigned to whatever happens. And I'm like, I don't know. You're right. Let's say if I've had 9 times out of 10 things didn't work. Yes, it would be hard for me to stay positive and stay optimistic. But there's that idea of like, I guess, the locus of control. Yeah. How much you feel your actions influence the outcomes in life.
Manifestations.
Yeah, manifestations too. I believe strongly in manifestations, but I'm also aware that I can do my very best and things still won't work out my way, and that's
a hard one though. That's the hardest one. that's the one that broke me. Because I was so convinced. I think that's where it comes. I feel I have a sense of perfectionism, which isn't good. I think perfectionism is always a sign of a certain kind of trauma. Something ain't right. And but I always had a sense of perfectionism. I was like, if I do things right, if I study as hard as I can, if I, focus as hard as I can, if I do this as hard as I can, then things will turn out. And then when they didn't,
there have been several times when, let's say, you find a job application, and like, this post is looking for me. I am the perfect person for this. And you craft that perfect cover letter, change your resume, and they don't even respond. It's one thing to get like an automated rejection, but they don't even respond. That was heartbreaking. I tell you, the job search is one of the most trying. One of the most trying periods anyone could go through.
Oh, another one that hurts is like getting through everything to the interview and then feeling like you nailed it.
That's happened to me too. And the spiral was hard.
The spiral is so hard.
I fell fast, and it took some time to get back out of it. Because I did have an experience like that. It was like a posting I saw kind of right after graduation. And then they had like so many interview steps. I'd say the first one's like you submit it, then they get back to you, then you have to do another exercise, then it's like a live chat, then a call, and homegirl's just clearing the hoops. I'm just like, I'm in it. And then I got to the final interview, and it just didn't work. And in my mind, I'm the kind of person who is
Start
seeing the big
thinking.
picture. So I'm like, okay, so this is the math. They said that the salary is this much.
This is what I'm doing.
So
My
when I
check.
have this money, I'm gonna buy this, and then I'll buy that, and then
Yeah.
all those plans just slowly disintegrate from the air. And so I've learned to be more cautious, but I would say I'm still a fairly optimistic person.
I'm not optimistic. I know that.
Okay.
But I do think I found ways to cope
Mm-hmm.
that I feel help me. I think I've always been. It's healthy caution. I feel it's like doing the best we can. Things can go right.
Yeah.
But if they don't, we're not going to spiral.
So that's good.
I have to give myself that. I can feel myself like that shame cycle just drawing me in. I can just feel, like movies or like Mr. Krabs.
Yeah.
That meme.
Oh, like everything's it's a blur.
It's a
It
blur.
took me a while to realize which meme that was, but that one's fine.
That's me.
I'll just share. So you shared on your anxiety, but it took me a while to realize that this was a state of anxiety that I had, that I was walking around with, till someone mentioned the kind of exact problem I go through on their podcast, and I'm like, wow, I'm not the only one. So I'm fortunate enough to have both my parents alive, and I understand that as we grow older, the chances of that happening, at least if we're getting older, they're getting much older too. So, and then I've also seen lots of my friends lose their parents, which is the most heartbreaking thing.
Heartbreaking, yeah.
And part of me was always just kind of like, I don't know if you anticipated you'd be ready when it happens, which is the weirdest thing. Because I remember telling my mom one day, I'm just like, I'm going to miss you when you die. And like, who thinks like that?
Girl, you said that out loud?
No, I did tell her, because I don't know, we were just chilling, and I was just like, I will miss this woman. What will happen to me when she's not here?
Yeah.
Because I run to my mom when something's wrong. So who will I then turn to? And then the person said that they had the same concerns, because we're so far away from our parents. You get to see them God knows how often. So what could possibly go wrong? It's Africa. It would be like a robbery or like an accident. But that happens here. You could be doing everything right and a car would hit you from nowhere.
Yeah.
But the person is like, thinking of it now only robs you of your joy now, because what makes you sure you'll be ready when it actually happens? You think you're doing all this preparation, but you won't actually be
Shout
ready.
out Crystal West.
I know. So it was just that realization, and I'm like, that was something I was really struggling with. So part of me was almost superstitious, like, oh, if I don't lock the door, then my dad won't be fine, so I have to lock the door. Like, you see how anxiety cripples you and robs you of joy in your life. So that's a struggle that I personally have, and I don't mind sharing, because everyone goes through stuff, and we're all about being open and taking the stigma out of things.
No, I feel anxiety about everything. Everything. You don't think I felt anxiety coming here? It's like this crippling anxiety, this constant state of stress. It's not healthy.
But what coping mechanisms have you come up with? Like, I know you're able to go to work and live your life, so it's not as terrible as where it really holds you back from opportunity.
Oh, it has.
It has?
It has.
Okay.
There have been moments where, like, I couldn't leave the house for, like, a school thing that I was really looking forward to. I'd prepared, I'd studied at everything. It's not even an exam. It'll be, like, a conference that's, like, I remember specifically this conference. It was at the Pinnacle. I was doing great in this class, and I knew what I was wearing. I was prepared. I wasn't participating, but I think I had like my questions ready. I had everything ready, and like I just spiraled. I got to the train station. I was spiraling.
Oh no.
And I remember I got to the Pinnacle and I went back home. That's the worst. And I've had moments like that before.
Oh no.
But like I always feel like right now, because things are good right now.
Yeah.
Like I can get out of the house and do stuff, and like I always feel like you have to prepare. Like you can't wait for yourself to spiral. I think that's what I did the first couple of times.
Yes.
The way I prepare for like my cramps. It's like I'm drinking my vitamin B, I'm eating my rice. I'm like, it's the same way I'm like taking my vitamin D. If I find that something's stressing me out, like I've been in the library for like ages, but I know that if I don't go to the gym, I've done nothing for myself. So like I work out, or I make sure that I'm at least I'm both eating well but treating myself.
I treat myself way too often. It's a bit much. I'm still rewarding myself for, I don't know, something I did last year.
Yes, but preparation is key. Don't let yourself, but try to work, like take the little baby steps. Because by the time like it was the night off, I didn't sleep. And the morning off, I got ready and everything. But by then, I was already spiraling. So if I had taken the small steps, like while I was preparing, I worked out. Or while I was preparing, I called a friend. Or while it's like take the little times to make sure that you can make it to the next step.
Yeah.
That's what I think helps me.
Okay. So you mentioned working out. What other, so I guess the whole topic of mental health in our brain, I know lots of people cite working out makes them feel good. I guess it's the endorphins and all of that. Is there anything else that you do that you feel has greatly helped you with your mental health?
I talk to a doctor, and I definitely take my vitamins, vitamin D and B, because I don't drink milk.
Yeah, I don't drink milk.
I don't eat red meat.
Okay.
So a lot of the times when I came in, he was like, "Girl, what's your diet like?" He was like, "Well, that explains it, sis. You're not leaving your home, and you're not eating meat, like, and." Obviously, there are other things that are triggering me. But, like, me taking my vitamins, especially when I feel like I have to. There are times I won't take them because I feel like I don't need it. But, like, if I know it's, like, almost my time of the month and my hormones are going crazy. Which, again, something like women, go check, like, premenstrual moods or whatever, PMS. It's, like, sometimes it's normal and sometimes it's not. It could be a marker of something bigger.
Oh, wow.
So, like, if anybody feels like that despair, that like deep down despair, that like, you know, that meme that's circulating, like, I knew I wasn't a punk. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So if you're feeling like deep down despair, like talk to somebody, because that's also part of like a sign. That could be a marker of something. It might be just PMS, but it also might be a marker of something. So around that time, I'm like extra careful with myself. I'm extra careful. Like if like I see people I want to see, I see people I don't want to see.
It's good that you said that about people you don't want to see, because I wanted to ask you just so there's mental health and there's the concept of energy or vibes, and I just had that realization today following the conversation we had. How do you handle, I guess the best way to deal with those people is to just not be near them. There's this clip that was going around of Oprah, and just realizing how important your mental space is and the people you allow, I guess, in your parameter, because we really are a product of our environment, and part of that is the people we spend time with, because I guess if you spend time with people who are positive and uplifting, you would be positive and uplifting, but if you're with negative people, they will bring you down. So how do you navigate that? Let's say you do have a friend, but I'd say they're a Debbie Downer, or they always negative in a sense.
I'm reading Brené Brown, The Gifts of Imperfection. Book changed my life. I just lost my copy. I'm buying it again. It's $20 in Indigo.
Wow.
It's probably the best $20 you'll ever invest in yourself if you ever feel. So, like, it doesn't have to necessarily be imperfection, but anything like related to mental illness. She's a.
Does she have a TEDx talk?
Yeah, she does. Yeah, her and Oprah are great friends.
Okay, of course.
Of course, but she talks about how, like, when you're stuck in some sense of like shame cycle, so like if somebody's energy is bringing you down, you know, and it's circumstantial. It doesn't mean that like if somebody brings you down in some aspect, if they're not giving you what you feel you need in a certain moment, doesn't mean they won't give you what you feel in a certain moment, in another moment.
Okay.
So it's fair. Like, so she talks about like how if you're open, if you are vulnerable, it gives other people permission to be vulnerable too. Okay. So I think in terms of like energy, so if you exchange, like if somebody's trying to give you bad energy, like if somebody you can't, if it's somebody you have to be around, like let's say it's a boss or you know, like somebody you have to be around, somebody you can't not be around of, like you should both give yourself the space, prepare yourself, but also like actively work to counteract that energy. So if it's like, if somebody's always a Debbie Downer, and be like, oh yeah, I know it could be like this, but at the same time it's like people notice when you're stirring the conversation. People will notice. People will notice, and that doesn't mean that like you're not there to listen. It just means that sometimes you're protecting your own energy.
Yeah.
And that's okay too.
I think once I had the realization, it kind of, like you said, being aware and knowing when to give yourself, and just, excuse me, the concept of mindfulness. So there are times I'm a person who gets easily distressed by the smallest of things.
Yeah.
So be it losing my compass card would just ruin my mood for the whole day, because in my mind I'm like, oh, there's money on that card.
Yeah.
How will I get to where I'm going? But there are often times where I just have this cloud over me, and then I'd have to like backtrack and find out what went wrong and why I feel the way I feel. So I feel like that's a great practice that everyone should take, in where sometimes you just stop to breathe and feel, like you said, allowing yourself to feel things.
Feel the feelings, man.
Feel
they hurt.
the feelings and work through them.
And
because then you know yourself.
Yeah.
Too.
And also, I think also, again, Brené Brown, and I've said this before, like, alignment. But I've said this before, that, like, not everyone has earned the right to your vulnerability. So if you feel like somebody's trying to either draw you in, because you've had those friends that are like, oh, so how do you feel? Do you like, it's like sometimes some people that are just there to know and not to actually care. Like, don't just be like, oh, I'm not ready to, like, that's the most healthy thing I've heard somebody tell me. They've been like, oh, I'm not really ready to talk about it. And be like, your real friends will be okay with that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like, oh, my energy is feeling really low. I do this all the time. Like,
oh, did you see the one where someone was like, I don't have the capacity to talk through this with you?
Yeah. And that doesn't mean, like, obviously you say, like,
right now.
You tailor it. You tailor it to a way, like, to, if you know that your friend is super sensitive, you tailor it in a way, like, oh, I usually have, like, oh, go talk to somebody.
Kanani will straight up tell you, I can't deal with this right now, so.
Especially, like, you know what, I also always find it's, like, repeated problems, because everybody has a certain problem that happens all the time, that they're feeling all the time. So if you feel like you've talked to this person about a certain problem, and it makes you, and it's starting to wear.
How many times can you go back to that guy?
Exactly. So if, like, it's starting to wear on you, you have a right to say, it's starting to wear on me too. This is how I would deal with it. However, I would like to talk about something else.
Okay.
And if that friend is so stuck in themselves, like, things could be really, really wrong, but it could also be a sign of selfishness.
Yeah.
And
a selfish friend is not a good friend.
No.
Oh my. Yeah. Okay, so I guess you did. So for you, and I guess science has backed, good nutrition and exercise are important for mental health too. So if you're eating well, or at least it helps it wouldn't make it all better. But before you do find yourself needing medication, that would be a good practice to make sure you're taking care of yourself.
Yeah. I like, really, oh gosh, like, really be invested in, like, what you're consuming. You know what I mean? And that, like, that means even what the fruits of your labor. If you like, it goes back to the Gucci stuff. If buying Gucci, if you still feel the need to buy Gucci after they've told you they don't like you, then, like, there's a problem. If you haven't really sat there and thought about it, and you still feel like, oh, I still need to consume this Gucci, there's a problem. If you feel like, oh, I'm needing that 3 o'clock chocolate every day, which is me. I need my sugar every day. Yeah. But if you still feel like that's something, so you address the problem that makes you eat that way. But, and I don't say, like, and I don't mean that, like, girl, I'm not missing no meals.
But make sure they're good meals.
They're good meals. And also, I do feel like there should be instances where, like, work towards yourself. If it's like, I'm not getting a chocolate bar, I'm working for this chocolate cake today, I'm about to bake it. Little things. I find efforts towards little things really help me. Like, step by step towards nutrition, step by step towards exercise, step by step towards,
step by step towards everything.
Yeah.
Man.
So I don't feel I find every time I look at things, people are always like, look at the big picture. I hate that. I want nothing to do with the big picture. I have dreams, but I never want something that a dream so big that it
Over. But people say if your dreams don't scare you, then you're not dreaming big enough.
or they also say if you're sleeping you're not working hard enough. None of those are true.
I don't. You said you're not missing meals. I'm not missing any hours because I can get her 8 hours of sleep, and that's something I don't compromise on.
Exactly, and that's on you.
Because there are times when people are like pulling all-nighters for exams, and I'm just like, you know what? I have a better chance of going to sleep and going in with a fresh mind. Then I can like pull answers from the corners of my brain versus just staying up for the sake of it.
Yeah.
And I graduated. I'll bet I wasn't a full A, 4.33 GPA student, but that philosophy
These get
got me
degrees.
So sleep is definitely something that I advocate for, and my dream is to one day be a sleep ambassador or something like that.
You want me to sleep for a living? I'm just watching Community, and there's this girl's homeless, and she's like, yeah, I sleep in the sleep lab. All I have to do is wake up every 3 hours. It's okay.
So I guess that's something for me. I can tell when a day is off when I don't get enough sleep.
Yeah.
So it's really just finding what works for you. And I guess for me, I'll just say, this is now where we get to the segment. Mudiwa suggested that we name it Last Words of Wisdom, which I don't mind.
Yeah.
So I'd say for me, a takeaway or something that has been of great importance to me is just the idea of mindfulness. So taking a moment to really just sit and reflect and look back on your day. You could look back on conversations you had. Because in the end, there's also that thing of where how people treat you is a reflection of what's going on in their mind.
Yeah.
So for me, the whole thing of externalities is just like, was I rude to that person because I was mad about something else?
Yeah.
So just kind of like a stock taking. Do I feel well? Am I eating well? Am I exercising? And once you go through that feeling, and then you don't feel like life is happening to you.
Exactly.
You're active and you're in it. And you're taking some ownership for what's going on in your life and not just being a victim. And then realizing that you do need help, do reach out for help.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. And living less passively is part of mindfulness. It's like, it's all connected. Live less passively, like actively. Like if you're going to wake up, I mean, maybe waking up is bad for me because I'm just like, I have a 30-minute regime.
Yeah.
It's like I've been out of the shower. No, but like things like I find reading is not passive for me.
Yeah.
Whereas I find sometimes watching TV is passive for me, you know.
You're not doing anything.
Yeah. Yeah. So like reading is less passive for me. Again, like really like taking stock. Like I have something I like every day. I'm like, oh, oil of oregano. We just got some today. We got some stuff to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, just and you know, I the other thing I really want to talk about before we leave is the idea of the commercialization of the self-care industry. And like just be wary of things like that. You know, people are selling all kind of dreams in the name of self-care.
Self-care chocolate.
It's like you don't like, it's not always like, you know, it's not always the face mask, or it's not always like the expensive stuff. Like sometimes like maybe like how I love seeing,
but I already associate self-care with face masks. So they've done a good job.
I told y'all I was doing face masks with 12 with egg whites.
I was on it. You just didn't bag it up and sell it.
That's true.
You'd be a millionaire.
There was, what was this? That face mask, that expensive one from egg white something. It's an actual face mask. I remember looking at it like, oh my god.
I have no idea what it is. You missed out in a way. I mean, it's not too late. It's not too
Them
late.
avocados with the backyard that Daddy was about to throw away. But yeah, like it's just like really just. And I'm only saying, and there's no level of perfection. I'm only saying what I do actively every day. Like I'm working every day. It's exhausting. Like I'm working every day not to feel bad, or like not to feel bad, but I'm working every day to protect myself from the bad shame cycles or like, you know, things like that. So if you feel like, oh, don't ever feel like if you didn't do anything. Sometimes for some people, self-care is waking up and brushing your teeth. Yeah. If that's what you've done, that's okay. And that's enough. You work on something else tomorrow or
And like you said, it's like not focusing entirely on the bigger picture, but count the small victories too. Those are victories.
Yeah.
Whatever works for you.
Yeah.
But that was good.
Yeah.
So do you think you've given your last words of wisdom if you had to sum it up?
Yeah, I think I have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much, Rura, for coming here.
Yeah,
And
thank you for
so
having
much
me.
For being as open.
I'm so passionate about this. Like, I don't even know. Like, I'm so bad at this. Like, I'm probably that walking nervous ball.
You're not a nervous walking ball, but I feel like sometimes saying things out loud gives other people the power because they could, in your words, they could find what they've been trying to say.
Exactly. So I'm very passionate about this. I'm always talking about this, and hopefully,
which is why I knew you were the perfect person.
Hopefully, it helps somebody out there.
And
You
I
know.
definitely did. And there's strength in speaking about things because if you internalize them too, then they stay with you, and you're just throwing the same things around in your mind. But saying them out loud, they stop to have power over you.
You take away the power of the shame from you. I'm reading Brené Brown, yo. This lady, I was telling one of my friends, I was like, I'm naming my child Brené Brown.
I'll be sure to put the book details in the description so people can find it. So like, you know, some people, if you still have your New Year's resolutions and reading every month was on the list, then this would be a good book, no?
I hate self-help. Like, I've always said, like, I don't trust anybody who tells me what to do. Without, like, but with her, I feel a kinship, and I recommend it.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
All right. Well, this is Kandwani and
Rura.
And we are signing off. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bum, bum, bum.